Hi there, I'm Colin Tipping, the author of Radical Forgiveness and the founder, with my wife Joanne, of the Institute for Radical Forgiveness. I'm here today with my good friend George Poirier, who is also a member of a men's group, of which I'm a member also. We've been meeting now for what George said, 24 years, and have done a lot of things together. And one of the things that we did do together as a group, we actually created a book called Wounded Healers. So George is a joint author with me on this book, Wounded Healers. I don't know whether you can see that. And there's a picture of our group on the back. But when we do get together, we have very, very deep discussions. And recently, we've been having a discussion about grief, because there's a chapter in my book, Expanding in Love, Into Love Through Radical Forgiveness, and a whole chapter on grief, death and dying. And so we've been discussing that, not just on an intellectual basis, but on the basis of the fact that I have cancer, and so we will be facing that possibility in the reasonably near future that I will be making a transition. And so we as a group of men have been really working on that whole notion, because now that it's become something really real to us all, so it's become more than just an intellectual exercise to talk about how to help people grieve and to make their transition. So what came out of that discussion, particularly with George, was that George has helped a lot of people, and he'll explain why in a minute. He's helped a lot of people go through the death experience. And he offered to do the same for me. And I'm going to ask him in a minute what that means. What is he going to do? What is this? What form does this help take? Now we both have the same ideas about what death is and what it isn't, so that's not going to get in the way of our conversation. But I'm going to let George really take over and explain to you, or I'm going to ask him, what are you going to do? What does this mean that you're going to be with me during this time that I'm going to be transitioning? So, enough said. George, I'd like you to just introduce yourself at first. Say, a little bit about your background and go from there.
Okay. My name is George Poirier, and about 30 years ago, I had a calling to get involved in the healing arts. And one of the first trainings that I went through was to go through the entire Reiki training, which at the time was quite obscure. Wasn't nearly as big as it is today. And shortly after that, I began to receive referrals from 3 different psychotherapists in Houston, Texas. And one day I got a phone call from one of these therapists, and she said, I have a dear friend of mine who's another therapist who has terminal cancer, would you help her? So I said, sure. And had never even thought about doing that work before. And basically, I spent time talking to her and doing Reiki with her. And she was able to let go of a lot of stress and a lot of strain, a lot of emotional issues that she had going on during the Reiki sessions. And she died very peacefully. And not long after that, I got another phone call from the same psychotherapist. And she said, I have another therapist friend of mine, but this time he's okay, but his mother is about to pass. And for some reason, she won't let go. Could you help her? I said, sure. So I went into a meditation, went out of my body, dialogued with her spirit, and asked her spirit what's holding you back? And she said, my granddaughter won't let me go. So I dialogued with her granddaughter's soul, and I said, you need to let your grandmother go. It's time to go. She said, fine. And a few minutes later, her grandmother passed. And I've had a couple of other experiences that were similar to that since then. These things came spontaneously to me. Never planned to do this, never really had any intention to do it. But after those two experiences, I became a hospice volunteer. And I did that for about 18 months. And that experience was totally different because there were people of many different belief systems that were in that hospice. Most of my work there was more along the lines of what today we call a death doula or a hospice volunteer does, which is the hands-on practical care of someone who's facing end-of-life issues. Feeding them, keeping them clean, changing their beds, very practical. And a few, not too many, but a few of the residents, because we didn't call them patients in hospice, we called them residents, asked for the type of healing work that I did, which I was glad to do. The last time I did this was in 2006. At the time I was living in Highlands, North Carolina, and a dear friend and client of mine at the time, I was running a day spa in Highlands. She called me and said that she had just a few weeks to live, and she asked me to help her. And so every day, 5 days a week, not 7 days a week, but 5 days a week, I would go there. And she was in a good deal of pain, so I did energy work, reflexology, talked to her, and calmed her down. And after about 3 or 4 weeks, she was no longer taking any pain medication, and she slipped away beautifully. So, again, this is not anything that I've really gone looking for or had an intention to want to do very much of. But when this happened with Colin, I just told him, there's not anything that I won't do for you, bro. I mean, you know, we're very close. We've been bonded together for 24 years. We've processed the deepest emotional stuff you can imagine. And so I want to be there for him. And what I'll be doing for him specifically, besides talking to him, which I already am doing this every step of the way, being with him as much as I can, is that when the pain begins to get intense, I'll be doing some energy work with him, some reflexology with him, and talking to him to help mitigate that pain. And my intention going into this is to create a container of love for Colin to have a conscious, peaceful transition. And I'll be working with him on a physical level, on a mental level, and on a spiritual level, before he passes and after he passes. And the model of the actual transition is based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead. We're going to be using a westernized version of that, but I expect everything to go very lovingly and smoothly. And that's basically what I'll be delivering to my brother.
Wow. I mean, you know, it's just fantastic that I have you. You know, I think of all the people that are going through what I'm going through that don't have this kind of support, and I just feel so sad for them, but joyful for me. I mean, to have you committed to doing this for me is just unbelievable, incredible, and I know the experience is going to be a very joyful experience. No matter how much pain physical, it's going to be a joyful experience. So you've actually answered quite a few of the questions that I was going to ask you anyway, but explain a little bit more. I think people get what you're going to do before, you know, before I make the pass. But they might think, well, once he's closed his eyes and taken his last breath, that's it. Why would you do anything after the death? what appears to be anyway the death. Because we both have the same idea about death, that it's not real, it's just simply a movement into a different vibration, that I'm still Colin, but now I'm just a spiritual essence, not a physical. I've dropped my physical body, so we both agree on, we're both on the same framework of thinking about death. But not many people think much about that time afterwards that you feel. I mean, you said you would be with me spiritually anyway for 3 days. What are you doing in those 3 days?
One of the misconceptions that I had going into this work is that when we pass over whatever issues we had, whatever mental and emotional issues we had, karmic issues, get left behind for the most part. Okay? And even people who believe in karma have some notion that the karma gets corrected when they reincarnate.
Right.
Well, my experience has been very different than that.
Yeah.
My experience is that when our spirit passes over and leaves the body, nothing ends. It just continues.
You take it with you.
You take it with you.
Yes.
And whatever issues you have, whatever unsettled business you have, whatever karma you have, you take it with you.
Yeah.
And you're working it out on the other side.
Right.
Now sometimes...
Which is an argument, of course, for doing my work,
Yeah.
forgiveness work, before you
Good
die.
idea, yeah.
Yeah, because you don't want to take, if you can reduce that baggage somewhat.
Yeah. No worksheets on the other side of the veil.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So it's a really good thing to complete as much as you possibly can.
Yes.
Which is what we're going to be doing.
Yes.
Right? But whatever you carry over, okay, to answer your question specifically,
Yeah.
I'll continue to dialogue with you on the other side of the veil
Okay.
and find out what it is that hasn't been finished
Yes.
and help you, give you actual instructions on how to deal with those issues that come up. They can be unspoken, unfinished business with people. It can be repressed emotions that you weren't allowing yourself to be aware of when you were in body.
And will you feel those? I mean, will you take those and feel them in your own body?
Sometimes, not all the time.
Okay.
Sometimes. I actually am beginning to feel them already
Yeah.
while you're still here.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't happen, that hasn't happened in the past.
Yeah.
But because we've been so close for 24 years,
Yeah.
I'm already feeling
Yeah.
stuff that you're feeling.
Yeah.
And so this becomes, I become a companion, and not only a guide, but I'm also your companion as you go through this.
Right.
I share this experience with you.
So it's a shared death in a way.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And the other thing I've come to realize since we got together last week is that I'm not alone in this,
Right.
that this is a group effort.
Yes.
Joanne is very much a part of this,
Yes.
right? Essence is very much a part of this.
Yes.
The Chiron brothers are very much a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the first time ever, this is what's new for me here, we'll all be experiencing this.
How many people get that kind of support? Not
I've never
very
seen
many.
it or heard of it before.
No. I mean, I'm so blessed to have this a degree of support and sharing of the experience, the companionship of going through this experience.
And I'm
It's
hoping that
amazing.
this can be a model for others
Yes.
that are going through what you're going through,
Yes.
to embrace this model so that, and be inspired by it, so that they can create this as well as they journey through.
Is this something you can teach people, George?
That's something to be seen. Maybe.
Uh-huh.
Maybe. Again, I think if it was a group effort, I think it could be taught. As far as the spiritual side of it, there are a lot of people who have those abilities.
Yes.
That can,
We know quite a lot of them.
I mean, the Monroe Institute teaches people to do this.
Yeah.
They have a whole program for this.
Yeah.
And so there are people in the world, a lot of people in the world that can do this work. And so why not?
focus it in on
Focus it on exactly what we're doing here.
Yeah, because death has been one of those things that people, we need to avoid that. Let's talk about, your life and the past and everything, but the death experience, not too many people want to go there. So, but if you could find people who have the kind of skills you've got to dialogue with the soul and that kind of thing, and teach them how to create this beautiful experience for people, what a blessing that will be to them and to the people that they work with.
The first big step is their willingness to discuss it.
Yes.
To have the kind of conversations we're having here,
Yes.
the kind of conversations that we had a week ago.
Yes.
The willingness to do that opens that door.
Yes. And you can speak eloquently about it, because not only have you had the experience, and you will have the experience of working with me, but you have the ability to talk about it and to express your ideas in a very cogent way. So I'm hoping that you will create a school of some sort where you would train people to do this work, because you're just one person. Like I was just one person doing radical forgiveness, and we created the institute.
Right.
And now we've got people around the world. So I can see you doing this, because it would open up the conversation that needs to be had about death and
Right.
dying, and to let go of this idea that it's a failure and all the other ideas that we have about death. It's just ridiculous. So I would encourage you to do something like that. But I do have a question going back to the teamwork. I have a team here on this side. When you go in after I've made my physical transition anyway, you think there'll be a team on the other side, like my mother, my father, my brother, and all the other people?
Well, we already created that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about that is that the work I've done previously, I never knew who I'm going to meet there. When I actually go into spirit
Yeah.
to dialogue with you, a lot of times souls will show up unexpectedly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like when we do breath work, that happens, doesn't it?
Yes.
We're doing our breath work, we think someone's, we're trying to get in touch with someone, and someone else pops in.
Right.
And all of a sudden.
And people who do deep meditation, when they go into samadhi, and they're in those samadhi states where it's pure love, pure
Yeah.
bliss,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, souls will appear.
Yeah.
People, their loved ones on the other side will
Yeah.
appear and give them messages. That happens frequently. We never know. I meditate every day, and I never know who I'm going to meet up with
Yeah.
when I meditate.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. Well, as you know, we've been planning a home funeral where the process will happen here, and you will be a part of that as well as that other team. You want to say anything about that we haven't already discussed?
Well, as it relates to this discussion, I think that what you're planning, like immediately within a day or so
Yeah.
after you pass over,
Ceremony, yeah.
is, I expect, I'm not sure of this, but I expect that while we're doing that process, that initial process, that there will be some communication
Yeah.
that will take place.
Yeah.
Again, it'll be spontaneous, there's no way of knowing what it is, but
I'll give a kind of, I'll knock on the box.
yeah, I do think there's so much more that will be revealed in this process that is completely new and completely different.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to stress too, for people that are watching this, people don't have to face this alone.
Yeah.
A lot of people face this alone.
Yeah.
85% of people in this country say they want to die at home, but 65% will die in a nursing home or hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
So having a conversation about this beforehand and being aware that there's another way to do this,
Yeah.
I'm hoping will open a door for a lot of people.
Yeah. I think it will. I think it will. Well, George, it's going to be an exciting journey.
Yes.
And I'm glad to be doing it with you.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, brother.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Yes.
Thank you.
My pleasure, my honor.
Yeah. And that's it. That's the end of this conversation, but we're going to be having a lot more conversations about this whole topic, and I intend to put a lot in writing into a book on cancer and how to deal with it in this way, in a spiritual way, and the whole process of dying. And so I hope to get that done before my time comes, so I'm asking Spirit to give me time and energy to get that written. But this interview was one way of starting off the dialogue that can go out and change a lot of people's attitude towards dying, and also to make them feel, giving them a peaceful transition. So thank you, George, again, and thank you guys for listening.